For this lesson, we are going to be discussing how Kemal Ataturk reformed Turkey. So your goal for this lesson is to be able to describe how Ataturk reformed Turkey. If you recall from the beginning of the year when we first talked about the Ottoman Empire was very religiously tolerant. It was one of the largest, strongest, most stable empires in all of world history. Here in this lesson, we're going to talk about how it starts to decline and eventually dies out completely, and as a result of World War I, will get completely broken up. We know that from our World War I lesson. And then we're going to examine how this individual, Kemal, really reformed Turkey, westernized it, and secularized it. All right, so here we're going to get started. You've got two images on the left. That's the Turkey flag, and the map underneath that indicates where Turkey is located. Turkey is is Asia Minor. So what was the Ottoman Empire? The Ottoman Empire was founded in 1299 by a family of nomadic Turks from the region of Western Asia known as Asia Minor. Eventually, the Ottoman Empire ruled over vast lands that included a diverse group of inhabitants. As the Ottoman Empire's control over its territories declined, nationalism among the ethnic groups ruled by the empire inspired rebellion against the Ottomans. At its height in the 1600s, the Ottoman Empire controlled most of the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe. But its power declined over the next 3 centuries. Due to a series of weak and ineffective rulers, a corrupt government, nationalist movements within its borders, and European imperialism, Ottoman power diminished. The leaders of some ethnic groups that were critical of the empire's weaknesses and its willingness to adopt European ideals in the 1800s started to pull away from the empire. For example, in southeastern Europe, the Greeks revolted in 1821, the Bulgarians in 1876, and Moldavia gained autonomy or independence in 1861. While nationalism grew throughout the empire in resistance to Ottoman rule, it was also a strong force in Istanbul, the empire's capital. A nationalist group called the Young Turks came to power in the early 1900s. They wanted to modernize the empire and turned it into a democratic state. They also turned the empire, which historically welcomed other ethnic groups into the fold, against non-Turks. On the eve of World War I, the Young Turks hoped to redefine the Ottoman Empire, while ethnic groups throughout the empire were hoping to carve out a place of their own if the, quote, sick man of Europe, end quote, as the Ottoman Empire was known at the start of the 1900s, were to die. In the Edpuzzle, I'm going to ask you to answer these 2 questions. First question is, why did different ethnic groups resist the Ottoman Empire in the 1800s? Why did different ethnic groups resist the Ottoman Empire in the 1800s? And your second question, what did the Young Turks want when they came into power? What changes did they hope to make? What did the Young Turks want when they came into power, and what changes did they hope to make? All right, so let's figure out how Turkey became modernized. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk lived from 1881 to 1938. He was an army officer who founded an independent Republic of Turkey as the Ottoman Empire was falling. He served as Turkey's first president from 1923 until his death in 1938. He is most well known for implementing reforms to modernize Turkey. These reforms rapidly secularized and westernized the country. A reform is a change designed to improve society. Ataturk's reforms were influenced by ideas of modernization, secularization, and westernization. We're going to take a look at those three vocab words right now. To modernize is to transform from a traditional and rural society to a secular, urban, and industrial society. So what does secular mean? Secularization is a process in which religion loses social and cultural significance. Westernization is the process of adopting or being influenced by the cultural, economic, or political systems of Europe and North America. Here on the left is a picture of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk in 1928. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to answer these questions on the bottom, questions 3 and 4. According to Peter Mansfield, and we're going to read an excerpt from his book in just a moment, what did Mustafa Kemal Ataturk believe Turkey should be transformed into? And 4, according to Peter Mansfield, what is one reform made by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk? So reading this excerpt by Peter Mansfield, it's called A History of the Middle East. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk was a secular nationalist who believed that all the inheritance of the Ottoman Empire should be abandoned and Turkey should be transformed into a modern European state. This involved less of a sudden break with the past than might appear. The Tanzimat reforms between 1839 and 1876 had laid the foundations of a secular state, and the Young Turks, even while attempting to preserve the empire, had given a powerful impetus or motivation to the cause of Turkish nationalism. During the war years 1914 to 1918, and you should know that is World War I, the secularization of education had proceeded and the universities and public positions had been opened to women. Certain of the law courts under the control of the religious authorities had been placed under the Ministry of Justice. A law in 1916 had reformed marriage and divorce. So in the Edpuzzle, go ahead and answer question 3. What did Mustafa Kemal Ataturk believe Turkey should be transformed into? And question 4, what is one reform made by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk?